Henry, thank you very much for your company. Where do we draw the line here between giving asylum, granting asylum to Christians who are being persecuted in the likes of Nigeria, Pakistan, it could be a multitude of places, and actually recognising that there are going to be some people who say they are Christian, who say they could say they are gay, they could say there are a multitude of things, in order to actually get status to stay here?
Indeed, they're gaming the system. I mean, I think there's three things, and two things, and you've brought up a third, if you like, which is the persecution of Christians abroad. And we haven't heard enough about that in the British press. I don't know why not. And I also don't hear the Church, the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Church of England calling this out and saying, what are we going to do about this? But with regards to the Yazidi case and James Cleverly's comments, look, first of all, the Church of England has got an issue internally. That's a matter for them, but it has political connotations because it is political. But we've just had an archdeacon of, was it Norwich? I'm not quite sure, who has said that she wants to put an end to whiteness, but she's not anti-white. I mean, I don't know what that means quite, but there is I think we all accept that the church is taking a position on asylum seekers, on refugees, on various things that is essentially political, not purely religious and ethical in that sense. That involves the church in a whole quagmire of issues. And that's what they've done here. They've got an issue to deal with. And indeed, I believe that they are being abused. They are being exploited. Their goodwill, if you like, is being exploited by liars, by cheats, by people who should not, under any circumstances, be given refuge in this country, or frankly, any other, who are using the Church of England to try and game the system. All right. And that's an issue for the Church of England, really. An interesting point. Do we see conversions to the Greek Orthodox Church or the Serbian Orthodox Church or the Russian Orthodox Church or to the Jewish Church or anybody else like that in the UK? I don't think we do. No. And so there is they are exploiting the Church of England specifically, and there's an issue to be addressed there. However, big but, the Church of England itself, as an institution or ethically, or legally, is not responsible for safeguarding the British people against people who are coming to this country who might do harm to the public or national security, for that matter.
That's what they argue. That's what they say, Henry.
Yeah, and they're actually right. And James Cleverly and the Home Office are trying to pass the buck here to the Church of England. No, if you think somebody is lying and trying to game the system, reject their asylum claim. Don't simply say, oh, well, it's a matter of fact that they've followed the process to convert to Christianity. It means diddly squat. OK, they are gaming the system. If you let them do that, then more and more will do so. And we need to reject those asylum claims. Yes, there'll be an outcry because, that's why they do it. But the Home Office has got to stand firm on this. Its job is to protect the British people. And in the Yazidi case, it's a clear example where they didn't do that. They failed bitterly to do that. And so, let's not allow James Cleverly to pass the buck here. But also, let's say to the Church of England, look, you have got some issues here. You need to address them because it's undermining the Christian faith, your congregation, the entire institution of the church. And we're talking at Easter now, at a time when, instead of celebrating Easter, this country, half of this country seems to be putting up lights and doing all sorts of other things to show that actually we don't care about it. Well, the Church of England has got some responsibility there, and I think it's failing. That's a matter for the Archbishop and the Synod and so on. But so let's have that conversation, but don't let the Home Office get off with this by passing the buck on to somebody else. The buck starts with James Cleverly in the Home Office.
Yeah, and Henry, one of our viewers has emailed in Timothy, good afternoon to Timothy, and he says, actually, he's talking about it being a cultural issue. He says, I don't want a lot of people coming to this country because culturally they are not aligned with many of us who are here.
That's very true, Darren. I agree. And look, you cannot bring in, and nowhere in history have we brought two cultures together without integration and an effort to integrate those two cultures. And if there's not been that effort, a successful effort, then you end up with tension, social tension, that quite often spills into confrontation, conflict, and violence. And because you end up with an attempt at what I call, and NATO called in Kosovo, and the United Nations called in Kosovo, cultural displacement or passive ethnic cleansing. In this case, we're talking religious stuff, so it's cultural displacement, not racial displacement, where you end up dominating certain localities through having built up a certain degree of a community of another culture that then insist on dominating that geographical space, which makes it then uncomfortable for people from other cultures, including the indigenous, if you like, culture. And yes, people will argue that there's nothing indigenous about the British culture, but we've had more immigrants come in the last couple of decades probably, than at any time between the Norman invasion and the 1950s. Yeah. So it's about pace of change here. It's about people feeling insecure. And it's about the government, the Home Office again, failing to ensure that people who come in are properly integrated. Darren, interesting piece of research we don't need to get into now, perhaps, but is the number of exclusions from people coming into this country for the requirement to learn English. So family members, the dependents, asylum seekers and their dependents.
It's a real problem. Yeah, it's a real problem. All right, Henry Bolton, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but that's Henry Bolton, the International Security and Border Control expert. I do have a statement by the Church of England, who have said it is the role of the Home Office and not the Church to vet asylum seekers and judge the merits of their individual cases. We wrote to the Home Office and they said they had no evidence to show us in regards to these claims.